Are the New York Knicks looking to trade Jericho Sims or Miles McBride? We're going to unpack that in today's video. You're watching Knicks Now by Chat Sports. I am your host, Marshall Green. Fred Katz, an NBA insider and a New York Knicks beat reporter that works for The Athletic, put out an article where he was just answering questions from fans. And the fan asked him, who are the players on the New York Knicks roster that are most likely to be traded? And he worked through some players, and he got to talking about Jericho Sims and Miles McBride, and he went on to say, quote, neither Sims nor McBride would be headliners in a trade since they are on cheap salaries and are out of the rotation. Other teams have tried to land them as throw-ins before, and the Knicks haven't been amenable. They like those two guys too much just to give them away. I could not see either Sims or McBride being moved unless their salaries were necessary to make a major trade work. And this is good news if you are a fan of the New York Knicks, because team building 101 is this. You don't trade cheap young talent. And that is exactly what Jericho Sims and Miles McBride are. Are they winning rotational pieces right now? You know, that's TBD at the moment. But I do think that there is a place down the line that they could be valuable players for a winning team. And I'm not against using them as a trade sweetener, because I do believe if you are in trade talks, let's just say, for example, with the Chicago Bulls, and you're trying to make a trade for Zach LaVine, I would say Jericho Sims is more trade. His Jericho Sims trade value is higher than a second-round pick. Or Miles McBride's trade value is higher than the second-round pick, because we've seen them in the league at least have some sort of success and be able to contribute to winning, and they are cost-controlled for a couple of more years. I'm a fan of McBride. I'm a fan of Jericho Sims. They're exciting young players, and they bring juice to this team that they don't really get from other players. We're going to dive more into their stats, and I'll ask you a question later on in the show, but I want to ask this one right now. Who has more upside? Who would you feel more confident in betting on to have a better NBA career? Is it Miles McBride? Is it Jericho Sims? Type MM for Deuce or JS for Jericho Sims. And I do know this. If the New York Knicks and Leon Rose make a move, and if it's about Jericho Sims or Miles McBride, no matter who it's about, we're going to be getting a video out on the channel as soon as possible for all of the Knicks Now subscribers. So subscribe and turn your notifications on so you don't miss a thing when it comes to the orange and blue. Let's start with Jericho Sims. We'll get to Miles McBride in a couple of minutes. I truly do believe, at my core of basketball knowledge, that Jericho Sims could be a rotational player on a winning basketball team. Is he ever going to be the starting center on a team that's competing for an NBA championship? Probably not. But can he be the first big off the bench on a team that is trying to win a championship? I do believe that he can be that guy. Let's talk about who he is and what he brings to the floor. First off, he is a hyper-athletic big, and he is an elite rim runner. He was in the NBA dunk contest for a reason. Did he kind of flame out and embarrass Knicks fans because his performance was atrocious? Yes, but we've seen him go to the top of the glass and grab a rebound from the stripe. We've seen him dunk it from all sorts of angles. And that carries me to point number 2. He is a real threat in that dunker spot. I would honestly say he's a better alley-oop catcher than a guy like Mitchell Robinson, because you can put it a little bit. The pass doesn't have to be perfect. I think Sims is more athletic than Mitchell Robinson. He's definitely got more bounce, and he can come out of a vertical leap higher. Robinson's bigger, and he's got longer arms, but we've seen that Mitch isn't the best lob threat, whereas I think Jericho Sims, Brunson drives left, he's on that right block. He could just put it up there at the top of the square, and Sims can go get it. Another thing that I really like about his game is he is a relentless attacker on the glass, offensively and defensively. I think if Tom Thibodeau could create a bench center, Jericho Sims would have a lot of the same qualities that Tibbs would put into the center that he can create, let's say, in NBA 2K. I also think that he's a solid weak side defender. We've seen him come from the opposite block and smack someone's shit out of there and make a nice block. And we've also seen when he's involved in a pick and roll on the perimeter, he's able to move his feet better than almost 90% of the centers in this league. A great athlete, great size, got a really strong lower body where he can move side to side. He's quick, and he's a good defender overall. And the thing that I think is going to help him become a better player in this league and see more minutes is his offensive game. Yes, he's really right now just a dunker spot threat, but he's got a little sneaky touch around the basket. We've seen that little push shot that he's executed a couple of times. He's solid from the free throw line. And when you are a big man and you can shoot 60, 70, 80% from the free throw line, that shows that you can be a threat on the offensive end by being able to knock down a couple of short jumpers. He has some touch. He has a little bit of that baby hook. I mean, when you look at Jericho Sims' stats as a starter throughout his NBA career, he's started 21 games in 2 years since coming out of Texas. And in those 21 games, he's averaging 26.5 points per game. 26.5 minutes per game, excuse me. He's giving you 5 points per game, 7 rebounds, 2.5 of which are offensive rebounds, averaging just under a block per game in those starts, and he's shooting 77% from the field. I'm a big fan of Jericho Sims, but I will say this. Having Jericho and Mitchell Robinson on the team is a bit repetitive because they are somewhat the same player. Robinson is the better player than Sims at this point, but you're not having very much a versatile guy that can switch in and out of the lineup. You're getting two guys that are defensive-oriented, that can protect the rim and finish out of the dunker spot. That's why I like Isaiah Hartenstein a little bit more as that backup big, just because he gives you a different look, feel, shot diet, and archetype than someone like Robinson. But I am a fan of Jericho Sims, and I would not be the biggest fan of trading him, but I definitely could see him being used as some sweetener in a blockbuster trade. We're going to break down Miles McBride just around the corner, but first, get hooked up with our awesome t-shirts, Knicks Now Real One tees. We've got the OG blue ones, but we've got the brand new black ones. They're the 2023-2024 season Real One tees. Get yours today at this link right here, chatsports.com/realknicks. Let's talk about Miles McBride. As Fred Katz pretty much said, that teams have inquired about now the third-year player out of West Virginia, a.k.a. Press Virginia. And I share kind of the same thoughts that I have with Jericho Sims. I don't want to trade him, but I would include him in a deal if it helps me land a superstar. I'll say this. Deuce always has a spot on my team, and I don't think that Deuce McBride will ever be that first guard off the bench for a team like Jericho Sims could be the first big off of a bench for a team. But I will always have a spot for Deuce McBride to be my third point guard and be the guy that comes in and is just a pest on the defensive end. We saw in the playoffs in the limited action against the Cleveland Cavaliers, he had a couple of stops on Donovan Mitchell, banked home a three, and kind of turned everybody up in that game. He can fill in when there's an injury in for a couple of games and give you some juice. Just be an absolute menace on the defensive end. That is always going to be his calling card in the league. But he's not really a point guard. He's just 6'1", so you automatically think he's a guard. But I would say this. He actually plays more like a wing than a point guard. I don't think his handle is all that tight. He doesn't create that much separation. He's not really a pick-and-roll player. He can't really create his own offense off the bounce. And while that can be looked at as a good thing or a bad thing, I'm just saying that even though he is your third point guard, you really still only have two on this roster because he's more of a guy that plays off the ball. If he wants to get more minutes in the NBA, though, he has to become a better shooter. You know, I love the energy. I love the defense. I love the swag. I love the intensity. I love the fact that he's a great teammate and people love playing with him and having him as a teammate. But at the end of the day, if you can't make shots in the NBA, at least at a league average clip, it doesn't matter how good of a defender you are. It's going to be hard to get you minutes, even if you're coached by Tom Thibodeau. I do love that he can change a game with his energy. It seems like when you're watching a game, you just know when Deuce McBride has entered. He comes in, he gives you juice, he picks up 90 feet, he plays defense, not afraid to hack anybody. I love what he brings to this team. He just has to be a better offensive player at the end of the day. And I'm saying that because I want to see him play more minutes, because I think there is a role on this team that he could fill. But you can't shoot 33.7% from the field, and you can't shoot 28.2% from three. These are his career stats per 36 minutes. In those 36 minutes, he's giving you 13.5 points per game, 5 assists, 2.5 steals. But man, no matter if you're Ron Artest or Bruce Bowen, if you are an absolute nothing ball on offense, it's going to be hard to play. And right now, that's kind of the boat that Miles McBride is playing But I do like him as a third point guard on a team that plays defense, comes in and roughs you up a little bit. I mean, you look at this team, you don't need him to play a lot of minutes, but he can come in and give you juice every once in a while. When it bounce back to Jericho Sims, I would keep him on this team. I do think you need 3 centers because let's say Mitchell Robinson goes down, you need one to come off the bench. And we've seen that Robinson, throughout his NBA career, has not been the most reliable player when it comes to being injury or not injured, I guess is the way to phrase that. Overall, look, the Knicks don't have anyone on this roster from the last 2 NBA drafts. They don't have a draft pick. They had Trevor Keels. They waived Trevor Keels. They still own his G League rights, but he's not contributing to the New York Knicks anytime soon. And with no draft picks on the roster from the last 2 NBA drafts, players like Deuce McBride and Jericho Sims are so important. I'm going to go back to what I said earlier. Cheap, young, cost-controlled talent. That's what these 2 players are. And when you don't have draft picks, you got to fill that box with some sort of check mark. And Deuce and Jericho, they do that at least a little bit. As always, remember, you can follow me over on Twitter at @MarshallGreen_. If you want to talk more Deuce, if you want to talk more Jericho, hit me up over there at @MarshallGreen_.